Well, the ASX 200 has closed up 0.6% for the week after we have seen a very solid performance the last 2 days, managing to actually recover some of those earlier losses that we saw in the week. For 2015, the Australian market is now up about 1%. The best performing sector this week was the property sector, up 3%. However, that energy sector really continued to weigh, down another 3.5%. And of course, that's in the wake of those oil prices continuing to hover around those 5-year lows. If we look at the Australian market, it was very quiet, particularly in terms of corporate news and of course volumes, given that a lot of people are still on holidays. We did mostly see some pretty solid data coming out. We saw those building approvals reaching record levels. We saw a slight gain in retail sales, and we actually saw that trade balance data coming through better than expected. But we mostly were driven this week, of course, by leads coming from overseas markets and, of course, from around the region. If we look at the US, we saw some fairly mixed data coming through, including weak construction spending and, of course, manufacturing growth as well, which really all points to the fact that the Fed is in no hurry to raise those interest rates. I certainly think that investors will be looking out for some more solid data coming out over coming weeks or so to determine whether that economy is still on track for some pretty solid growth. Of course, tonight that US non-farm payroll data will be very closely watched. Over in Europe, there was a lot of uncertainty about a potential exit by Greece from the Eurozone, and that certainly wobbled markets earlier in the week. And of course, we also saw that inflation over in the Eurozone now dropping into negative territory, and that certainly puts pressure on the ECB in terms of increasing any quantitative easing, although in turn that certainly will provide some support for some of those European stocks. Having a look at the week ahead, we are expecting that potentially we might start seeing some of that corporate news picking up once again. But looking at the economic data side of things, on Monday we have ANZ job ads through, as well as housing finance data. And on Thursday we have employment figures and of course that unemployment rate, where we are expecting that to remain unchanged at 6.3%. In China, we'll be looking for export and import prices coming through on Tuesday. And of course, in the US, we have retail sales coming through on Wednesday, producer price inflation on Thursday, and consumer price inflation on Friday. So expecting to see another fairly quiet week in terms of corporate news and of course economic news. But I certainly think the market will continue to be driven by those leads from overseas markets.